Welcome to our DP2 Microlearning Getting Started. These programs are designed for brand new users and for folks who perhaps have been brought in to the lab or into a new role in the lab and are suddenly responsible for some functionality in DP2. And for those of us who have to teach to help you prepare new users for navigating successfully in DP2. In this particular session, we'll be focusing on the new user. So we'll be navigating through the UI, talking a little bit about some of the basic tools in DP2. So we're going to be taking a tour of the menu items, things that can make your life a little bit easier while you're learning, and things that are designed for you to set up. We're going to take a tour of the user tasks. The user taskbar is really the primary vehicle in DP2 for getting where you need to go. And then we're going to take a quick tour of the products and kind of why these are so important to how DP2 functions. By way of introduction, I want to take a quick look at 3 different states in which new users tend to find themselves. The first is I'm going to learn how to use DP2, and I open it up and there's pretty much a blank screen. Kind of where do we get started and how do we do that? The second scenario is when somebody sits you down in front of DP2 and there's things happening and you can tell that there's work happening and things are going on and you don't really want to touch anything, and kind of how to get comfortable in that environment. And then our third scenario is you sit down in front of DP2 and it looks something like this. And of course, it's intimidating, all those windows open and all that apparent activity. And we'll kind of talk about each one of those as a starting point as we go through the program. For this Getting Started session, we're going to go with the blank screen. I'm going to open DP2. So I'm going to start with DP2, and we're going to start with a blank screen. The first things that I want to talk about are, as I said, the menu items. And here they look a lot like menu items that you see in any program. I'm going to focus on the things that are really user-based and that as a new user, you may want to set up for yourself, or if you're setting up for somebody else, things that you're going to want to think about. So the first stop is the edit menu. I am logged on as an administrator, so I have full access to all of these. If you're not logged on as administrator, you're going to see color management and crop and head alignment settings. I'm going to talk just very briefly about color management. Color management in DP2 is, we refer to that when we're using ICC compliant color profiles, which is a strategy for helping to accurately predict and control what's coming out of your printer. When you sit down with a program like DP2, where there's a lot of different parts of your lab workflow that can be managed inside of a program like this, if you have some responsibility toward color correction or quality control or print production, you may be at a system that is being color managed. And in DP2, we set that up with a monitor profile. What you see here are the default profiles that are installed with Windows. What we recommend is that the monitor be calibrated and color corrected, and that monitor profile specific to that system is what's displaying the color. That you set up the output viewing profile based on the work that you have to be looking at, whether it's coming out of a device, a printing device, or some other sort of output. And the working space profile is something that's determined by the lab, and it should be consistent across the lab. And that working space is where all the numbers crunching is done, from your input device to your images through to your output device. So these can be an important part of setting up a workflow, depending again on what the role is for the operator, and I just wanted to kind of point that out. The next step for us is going to be to talk a little bit about the view menu. The first thing that you'll see on the view menu is those user tasks, and I'll just quickly point out the user taskbar, which we're going to talk about in a few minutes, is here. If you should happen to close that, either accidentally or on purpose, the way that you would get it back is to go to view users task. The next options I want to talk about on the view menu are here in the preferences. So the first preference that we see is show node boxes, and that's set to show you node boxes which define and help you understand what areas you're looking at or what nodes you're looking at in a product. And that might sound like foreign language right now, but by the end of this, I'll have explained a little bit more about that. But I would strongly recommend that you leave this selected so that you can see them. Show prompts and show placeholders are specific to a couple of different workflows. And I think as a new user, you don't need that yet. Preview detail for layout and jobs. You see there's 3: best quality, intermediate, and faster, or fastest. For both images and jobs in DP2, for jobs in DP2, we're really just showing you a small thumbnail, and I'll show you that before our session here is done. For a layout or a job, which is building that product or that, output, what size and shape things are, or a job, which is that combines that with an image, from an order. There's 3 different ways you can look at this. You can look at it in best quality, intermediate, and fastest. That's a reference to the amount of image information on screen or the resolution of the thumbnail that you're looking at on screen. We recommend best quality for when you're creating a product, if you have artwork in it, or you need to be able to see if a mask is going to be in the appropriate location. Intermediate is something that you might, use as your checking work. If you have to check to see if a frame or a mask fits around a face, or that it's not going to obstruct content area, and you're in the QA part of the role, then you might want to keep it on best quality. But if you, on the workstation that you're on, if you have no QA responsibility to it, you could leave it fastest. For preview detail for images, we have best quality and fastest. And again, the same thought is true here. If you have to do color correction, or you're looking at images on screen, especially if you're comparing images on screen between DP2 and another application or some other interface, you might want to set it on best quality. But as I said earlier, with the jobs and layouts, there's going to be more image information on screen. So best quality might take a little bit longer to resolve. It's important to mention here that in DP2, when we're looking at images on screen, and of course we're going to go through, I'll show you the images table before we're done, that we're really looking at a thumbnail. What happens when you import an image into DP2, we don't really open the image. What we do is we read the information, and we embed a thumbnail in the metadata for that image file, and that's what's displayed on screen. So that you're not opening and closing, say, a JPEG over and over and over again in DP2, and it speeds up the process quite a bit. So these are attributes that should be set based on whatever the role is or your role is. One other item to mention before I leave the view menu item is this display warnings on job or layout error. So that if something's missing, if DP2 can't find an image file in a job, or there's something not quite right in your color management, the warnings will tell you what's going on, and it'll list whatever the problems are, but it'll clear them when you fix them. So as a new user, I would recommend leaving this set so that you can see the warnings when you need them. When you're using the file menu item for window, and you have a lot of windows open in DP2, and I will hopefully remember to show you this, but it is also will be in either Getting Started #2 or Getting Started #3 to follow this one. What this will allow you to do is close all with some very specific exceptions, but it would also show you a list of all of those windows that were open and allow you to bring them forward. So if there was one that was in the background, you could bring it forward so you're not fishing through all that information. So it can be really helpful. The last menu item that I want to reinforce, especially for new users, is our contents, our help system. We have a robust help system. We spend a lot of time trying to improve it and enhance it and add to it, especially as we're adding new features or enhancing features that already exist in DP2. So I really would encourage you as a new user to take a look. Table of contents in DP2, each one of the major areas is covered in one of our chapters. I want to encourage you to take a look at that as you're getting started. When you're in different windows and different interfaces in DP2, you'll either see, and I'll point these out as we go, book icons, or you can always, or the fastest way to get to it is F1. A couple of other things that are important to know. The DP2 service desk, we have a direct link from inside of DP2 to Service Desk. We have a full knowledge base of articles, things that have happened with other labs. There's ideas and instructions and videos and tutorials, all kinds of material is available to you in the knowledge base, and that has a full table of contents, so you can kind of search what you're looking for. If you have a need to do a problem report, this is where. So if you are a new user and you're in an active production environment, I'm sure there'll be somebody that can help you to create a problem report if you should have to do so. So let's move on to the user taskbar. When you first start up DP2, if you haven't changed anything, everybody starts up from the order entry taskbar. These can be customized. There are many different ways to really enhance the DP2 user experience by creating a custom taskbar that only has the tasks in it that you need. And if you're brand new to the DP2, please reach out to us and we'll be happy to show you how to do that. We're going to start out by looking at what's in the user taskbar. I'm going to start, this is order entry, as I said. Each one of the general task categories on the user taskbar includes all of the things that we think you might need to use. So in a case of order entry, it's got select order. It has, searching orders and adding orders, that kind of thing, opening up the table, some basic things that as a team, we felt you would need. If we go down to the categories button at the bottom of the order entry taskbar, the user taskbar categories includes all of those features and functionality groups and tasks that are necessary to get work done. We're going to go through a couple of these just so that I can kind of show you how it works. What I will say is that DP2 is pretty consistent. So the strategy that they use to organize something in one place is pretty much the same as you're going to find it in other places. It's important because as you get accustomed to working in DP2, I think you'll begin to see the patterns and it'll be a little bit easier to understand where to look for something and how to become more self-sufficient. So the first thing I want to mention is that the tasks that you need to see is totally dependent on the job you're doing. So as an example, somebody in data entry would, of course, probably want to start with order entry. Someone in print production might never see anything other than the printing taskbar. There are a number of categories here that are specific to being able to do certain jobs. We have administrative taskbars that include all the features, access to all of the tables that an administrator or production manager might need. We have an analyzing taskbar that includes some of the features and the utilities that we use for color correction. Same thing with auto retouching and so on. So there's a whole series of these. It really depends on what it is that you need to do. You can easily create custom categories and custom tasks so that if you are doing a specific job, you don't need to see all of these other categories. So that if you're doing a specific job, we want you to only have to interact with the pieces of the software relevant to your job because we want you to be efficient. DP2 is primarily an automation tool. So the faster we can get you to where you need to go, the better off everybody is. I'm going to go through the order entry taskbar briefly, just a couple of things so that I can show you what things look like and get you familiar with kind of the different views. So from the order entry taskbar, I'm going to move back out of the way a little bit. I'm going to go to select order. And I'm using select order. Select order is a tool that we'll talk about in more depth in some of the follow-up getting started. Select order allows you to get directly to an order if you have the order ID, or the job ticket. In many labs, it's the same thing. I'm going to use the sample order, and so I'm just typing in the first letters of the sample order. And I'm doing that because what I want to have happen is I want to just open up two of the primary tables and views that we use in DP2. This is the order images. So this would be where if order images had been imported into DP2, and that's manually or automatically, programmatically. This is where we see those little thumbnails that I was referring to earlier, and you can see at the bottom, I can see how many images I have in that order. This is the order items window, and here I can see the jobs that are specific to this particular set of images. There's a number of ways to do things. This is what we call the thumbnail view, right? It's a WYSIWYG. There are other things that we look at in a grid view or a table view, such as, and I'm going to just select the order data as an example. Right? At the heart of everything in DP2 is that order ID, which ties all the pieces together. The order data table is what we call a grid view. Both the thumbnail and the grid view provide information. at the time that you're trying to get your work put together or create jobs or send jobs out to the printer. So the last but not least part of the UI that I want to cover in this Getting Started is to talk a little bit about the product, which is really at the heart of how DP2 works. So that's where we define what it looks like, how big it is when it goes out to the printer. I'm going to use our window, so you can see I have those three windows I have open show up in my window, and I'm going to do this very nice button that's closed that says close all, and that's going to close all of those windows. And it's going to leave open my operational windows, my user taskbar, and my select order window. That way you don't stop work that's going, and we talk about this in more detail in other videos that we've posted. On the order entry user taskbar, right down here toward the bottom, I have the product tab or button. I'm going to select that. It's going to open up my product window. The product window in DP2 is really our catalog. It can be a combination of any of the work that you have in DP2. Products can do all kinds of things. We have products that can be used to generate multiple order items. We have products that can send a straight 8x10 to a printer. We have products that can auto-deliver a digital file. All kinds of work in DP2 is done via the product, and that's a really important concept in DP2. I'm going to open a product so I can demonstrate a little bit of what I'm talking about. One other thing to mention about the DP2 UI is I can use the right-click menu, and most tables in DP2 have right-click menus, and there's a tremendous amount of functionality, especially in these WYSIWYG thumbnail views, that's available through that right-click menu, or I can just double-click in this case to open this. So here is my layout or product. And it's really it's a set of instructions for how to send something to whatever output device we have. And I want you to notice that when I opened that up, and it's an active window, that I now have a fully functional toolbar icon here at the top of my screen. These icons are used when you're either creating a product or editing a product, or when you have to do something with a job. The same tools that we use to create a product are the tools that we use to create a job. I'm going to talk a little bit more about what we call the output specification, and that's that set of instructions that sends it off to the printer. By selecting the Open Save Image dialog box, these icons here, these 6 are the ones that we use to associate that product with the right output device. I'm going to open that up just to give you a feel for what's happening and give you a sense of how the product works. This is output to disk file, and it's where we determine the file type, where we might change or set the resolution. If we had back printing, where the back printing would be. If we had a printer that we couldn't have direct communication with through DP2, we can send data that tells the printer what paper surface it is, what the width is, potentially what cassette. It really just depends. And if we have the opportunity here to do some color management and to make some choices about a PDF workflow. I'm showing you this to give you both a sense of what some of the windows look like in DP2, but also the types of decisions that are made when somebody creates and saves a product. For DP2, it's really a set of instructions, and those instructions are used by the DP2, what we call a render engine, in order to send the right rendered image out to the output device. There are many different features that are enabled by using the toolbar. This is a crop and move tool. If we had an image in a job, you could shift it around, zoom. The magic wand, select an area by color. So some of these are pretty standard. These have the ability to draw. These are the node tools, so that you can draw different types of nodes, rectangles, squares, circles, different shapes. You kind of create your own shape or polygon. There's some move tools and some curve tools. These 4 are actually relevant to images, so those were active when we had the image open. And for grids, so that you can kind of control what you're doing. There's edits for the image and text node, so there's a whole series of things that once you get into doing some work in DP2 will become pretty familiar with. We have a number of different videos on our YouTube channel. I encourage you to get there through Service Desk and explore all the different information, as well as, of course, I encourage you to use those help files Well, I hope this provided a good kind of overview of what DP2 looks like and kind of how to get started and what things do, and that it provides some support as you're learning it or trying to teach it. So thank you very much for joining me. I very much appreciate your attention today. Thank you.